Welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife. And this week, just a couple things have come up that made me think of a research study that I ran into a while back. And that had to do with infertility and birth rates and that sort of stuff, which got me considering the situation several really close friends have had that are military families in regards to Tricare and what they do and do not cover in those cases. So I really kind of wanted to break that down for you and talk about that today. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. Okay, so first things first, just a little public service announcement, basically admitting that I'm 100% human. Back in April, I did an episode on Sudan, but I also it was Sudan and a book club launch idea. And I was not feeling that great when I was uploading it and ended up getting very, very sick the next day and never went back and realized that I didn't actually upload my episode. I uploaded the full length of my theme song. Yeah. So I fixed that. So if you want to go back and check out episode 102, Sudan, it's supposed to have been Sudan in a book club. But anyway, it's now actually up for you to listen to. And that means none of you all were aware of my initial launch of the book club. So this summer, kind of wanted to do a fun thing. I have 2 books that I wanted to share with you guys, and I've talked about this in episodes since. So if you've been confused about what I was talking about, go see episode 102. But long story short, next week specifically, I will be going over and doing a book review of C.S. Lewis's The Four Loves. So if you have any questions or comments or anything you want, shoot my way to include for the book club episode on that one, please let me know. I'm doing it next week. And then the other one is The Art of Comforting. And I have the links to find all those books in episode 102. If you're interested in that one, I will be doing my book club review of it at the end of July. So that is where everything is. And I feel really embarrassed that it took me so long to realize that I had messed that up. So, public service announcement over. Back to today's topic at hand. So, like I said, a couple weeks ago, I ran into a research study, and I actually went back and tried to find the original study that I had found. And I'm not sure I found it, but I found another study that covered the same concepts and information. And it was and I am going to just confess this right now. I do not know Hungarian. And if I am butchering the name of this university, please forgive me. But it's Semmelweis University in Hungary. And they built their study off of, they used over 27,000 research studies to compile their information and to gather their data and all that other stuff. So they used a lot of information, and it was a worldwide it's probably the most comprehensive worldwide male fertility study that's been done in, I don't probably ever. And the findings were really, really shocking. So, worldwide male fertility has halved in the last 50 years, with the pace of the decline more than doubling since 2000, which is drastic. And this is worldwide. This research covered everywhere: Africa, Asia, South America, North America, Europe, like everywhere. Like, this is not just a developing nations issue or a European or Western nations issue. This is worldwide. They examined the DNA, and because I'm talking about reproduction, I'm going to use reproduction words. They examined the DNA in sperm and the intact versus fragment genetic material. The more fragmented the genetic material or the DNA, that can increase risks of like miscarriage and whatnot. Um, and now that was just I don't know. To me, that is completely shocking. And I've been hearing things for a while about birth rates dropping, population declines, and that might seem like a great thing for the people who are worried about economic or environmental resources depleting and things like that. And yes, there is possibly good news on that front, maybe depending on your perspective. But really, where this comes into play is in economies. When you have an economic decline of participants in the economy, you get an economic decline overall. So, when the majority of your population is retired and you have a smaller population supporting a larger retired population, that puts a larger strain on your economy and can cause economic issues and downturns. And that is a serious issue that Japan is, or not Japan, sorry, that China is facing. That's a serious issue now that Europe is facing. And no surprise, the United States is not exempt from this issue. And so they were talking about possible contributors were smoking, alcohol use, and body weight. Um, the other study that I remember hearing about initially also said that there were environmental factors, pollutants that have gotten into our environment are also causing this issue. And so and it affects women in the fact that this male fertility is greatly influenced in utero and in puberty. And so if in utero, if the woman is being exposed to some of these environmental contaminants or stuff like that, it can affect the baby boy inside of her, who is developing. And then, uh, yeah, so on and so forth with those things. Um, the other factor with this is looking up the current birth rate. In the United States, the current birth rate is 55.8 births per 1,000 women ages 15 to 40. And that might not seem like a big deal, but when you compare it to the statistical replacement rate, that basically the rate of births necessary to just replace our current population, not increase the population, but just replace the people that are already here so that when they reach, you know, later years in life, their golden years, that there are individuals to support them. That statistical replacement rate should be 2,100 births per 1,000 women. So let's recap here for 5 seconds. We're at 55.8 and we should be at 2,100. That is shocking. That is completely mind blowing. And the thing is, this statistical trend in drops in birth rate have increased since the 70s, especially. And that coincides quite handily with all of the research we are seeing in regards to the infertility rate in men increasing. And so here's the other component. Oftentimes, when there is infertility issues, um, and this is something I have seen as well as have been told, most people tend to assume that the fertility issue is that on the part of the woman. Well, turns out not so much anymore. Infertility can now be equally or more likely the cause on the cause of the male. So, um, the husband, wife, whatever, it just um it's not always what you think it is. And the other contributing factor is that men seem, and this is according to what I've been reading, doing the research for all of this, to be less inclined to go get checked to see if they're having issues with fertility. And so it's quite possible that the woman will assume it's her when it's not her. And so just kind of refreshing, going back to something that we covered um in my infant development class back in college, is that most couples previously, this may not be the case anymore, but 10, 12 years ago when I was in college, the majority of all couples will conceive within a year to 2 years of trying, and the remaining will be able to conceive within 5 years of trying. And so it's in the past, this was what I was told in college. Only about 5% of all couples really have infertility issues. That may not be so much the case anymore. I mean, it's been a minute since I was in college, but at the same time, it's not been that long. So this has all just been completely mind-blowing for me, but it goes back to what I was talking about before. Military families tend to have more children than the average American family, usually between 2 to 3 kids per family. We have four. There are some that have more, there are some that have less, there are some that have none. And there are some that have none because they don't want to, and that's fine, that's their choice. And there are some that have none because they just haven't been able to. And that I have seen firsthand. Just in our time being in the military, I have known close to 10 couples who have struggled to conceive, actually, probably more than that. Come to think of it, I'm thinking of a few more just as I'm sitting here talking. I actually reached out to some of those to just see if they were willing to share their stories. And because it's a sensitive topic, I got very little response back, and I'm not surprised. So I'm going to give some generalities based on what I am aware of. But seeing as we have not personally struggled with infertility, it's not it's hard to, yeah, it's just, I've not actually been through this process personally, is what I'm saying. So I'm going to give you the best information I have, but if there is something that I get wrong, please give me some grace. I'm doing my best. So, long story short, there are things that Tricare does and does not cover. And one thing that I heard from multiple people was that Tricare won't even let you start looking into infertility stuff until you've been trying for a year, which is reasonable. It can take a little while for things to, you know, work out, or if you've been on birth control, for the birth control to get completely out of your system. So don't stress if it takes a little bit to conceive. The other thing I was told was that, so there are actually some military fertility treatment centers. I was not aware of that. Probably because I've not really been stationed. Yeah, I've not been stationed near any of these places. So I'm going to give you the list that I was able to find. It was on military.com. And these are Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. Not surprising, it is the center for a lot of medical, mm, yeah, military medical stuff. Tripler Army Medical Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. Womack Army Medical Center in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Magdin, I hope I'm saying that right, Army Medical Center in Tacoma, Washington. San Antonio Military Medical Center. Not surprised about that one also because that's where all the military AIT stuff is done. So, I mean, the training. Basically, anyone who's going to be in military medical, that's where a lot of the training is done. Not surprised that they'd have facilities there. And then the last was Navy Medical Center in San Diego. Again, that's a big hub. So, not completely surprised about that location. Honestly, the one I was most surprised about was Tacoma, Washington, but maybe I shouldn't be. I don't know. Anyway, but those are the ones that are there. So, here's the other thing. If you're not lucky enough or I don't know how you feel about it, but if you're not able to, or you're not currently stationed near one of those facilities, you do have the I can talk. You do have the option or opportunity to pursue civilian partner care. You need to make sure that it is covered by Tricare, and a portion will be covered, but not all things will be. You might have a copay and whatnot. Tricare billing is kind of, well, special, as anyone who's been in the military for a while knows. And sometimes when you're sent to see providers, civilian providers, they will bill things in a way that just doesn't make sense or TRICARE doesn't cover. So this is one of those situations where it's really, really important to make sure that it's being billed properly. I was actually watching a YouTube by a doctor recently, and he said that largely if there are issues with you getting a bill from your insurance that you're pretty sure is wrong, it's usually probably because of billing coding, that they put in the wrong code for the procedure or whatever it was. And so if anything comes up and it's like, oh, you have to pay all of XYZ, a lot of those things you can fight it. Can just be like, hey, can you go back and check and just make sure you got the right thing? Blah, 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 blah. That's actually not a huge deal. And that might make you feel uncomfortable, but this is something you need to advocate for. The other thing I was told is that not all of these people have the best bedside manner. At least that's what one friend said. She said that just feel comfortable with, if you don't feel comfortable, go find someone else. This is a very personal thing. Go find another doctor. There's other doctors around typically. So, and then the other issue she ran into is the one that she was originally referred to was super busy and just never got back to her and didn't have openings, so she found someone else. Hmm. Sorry for the yawning. But anyway, so that being said, you might have to do some research. You might have to figure out what you've got locally and what your options are locally and just kind of shop around. This is where it doesn't hurt to reach out to your military community and see if there is anyone else who's been through this process before who can give you pointers on good local resources because it is going to vary from location to location. The other thing that you need to know is that IVF and there is one other one are not covered. It is in I'm going to say this wrong. Intrauterine insemination. I butchered that. So, basically there are two that are completely not covered. They have any of those ones, but there are some things that they do cover. Um, so it's just good to get a hold of. So things that are sometimes included are, well, laboratory work is usually included, corrective surgery, prescriptions, different things like that. One of my friends said that they wanted her to start keeping track, a log of what she ate and what her diet was and what her exercise habits were, seeing if any of those things could possibly be contributing to the infertility. And then I've heard basically once you get into things like IVF, it gets really, really expensive. Um, really massively expensive. And it can cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and TRICARE does not cover it. I have heard, but I have never been able to verify that there are supposedly nonprofit organizations that will assist in these things. But that's, again, I think that might be just hearsay. I've never found any conclusive, here's a website, go to this, they will do that. I've never seen that. So it's unlikely. If you are going to have to pursue IVF, there are ways to get financial assistance in general. Those are loans from the Army and different things like that, like military loans and whatnot. Uh, save up some money. I don't know what you're getting on your tax returns, but maybe save up some of the money from your tax returns. There are ways to do it, but I have seen friends go into debt, massive amounts of debt, to be able to have children. And my heart goes out to them because that's such a hard decision. And it gets to the point where the financial burden is just overwhelming. And so you have to make a decision between children and the ability to provide for them without being drowning in debt. So, again, it is a complicated situation. Your best case scenario is always contact Tricare directly and make sure that you research your local area to find out what your options and availabilities are with different providers, specifically if you are not close to one of those military facilities and you have to rely on civilian providers. I hope that some of the information I was able to share with you today was beneficial. I know for me, it was eye opening. I knew that I had known, or it felt like I was encountering more and more individuals who were struggling with this. Um, but I had no idea how absolutely pervasive infertility had become. So for all those who are struggling with this, my heart goes out to you quite genuinely. And I hope that you're able to find the peace and resources that you need. And with that, I'm just going to kind of wrap it up. I will be covering C.S. Lewis's The Four Loves next week. If you feel so inclined to shoot me a message with questions you had about that book or comments or thoughts, I'd love to include them. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you've been listening to Life of a Military Wife.